a lot of people have this stigma about the no snitch policy, but I can tell you that in the community, the people were fed up, and they was like, you know what, you may call me a snitch, but I'm going to make sure that my community is safe.
Brothers and sisters, brothers and sisters, I don't know what this world is coming to.
You're listening to the Black and Blue Podcast, a discussion and celebration of the roles of African Americans and other minorities in U.S. law enforcement. Your host on the Black and Blue Podcast is Dale Peters, a law enforcement professional with over 20 years experience in the business. Hop on board this Black and Blue train of interviews, current events, and pop culture conversations. So get ready. The Black and Blue Podcast is coming at you right now. What up, Black and Blue fam? Welcome to the latest edition of the Black and Blue Podcast, where we celebrate diversity in U.S. law enforcement. Y'all know me. My name is Dale, and I'm the host. Thank you for rocking with me today, because I got a real good one for you also. Let me tell you, but before we do that, let me ask you, please click those like, subscribe, and bell icons right down here on my YouTube channel. And if you listen to me on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you rate the Black and Blue Podcast 5 stars. And finally, make sure you follow me on any one of my social media pages for even more content. You can find me everywhere at Black and Blue US. All right, so with that out the way, let's do it. My guest today helps keep the students, staff, and visitors to one of our great historic Black universities safe. So come on, y'all, help me welcome to the show, Winston-Salem State University Police Lieutenant Henry King.
Thank you, Dale. I appreciate it.
How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fine. How about yourself?
Man, I can't call it. It's another beautiful day out here in Southern California. And you are out there in the beautiful state of North Carolina, correct?
Yes, sir.
Wow. How's things shaping out there in North Carolina?
Well, we just had a tragic loss of a police officer in Greensboro who unfortunately shot inside a food line responding to a armed person call. But besides that, man, we're doing fine in North Carolina. You know, it's sad that our brothers in blue have lost another loved one right here in the month of December. So, you know, I just want to, say a special prayer, for Michael Horn and his family.
Wow, I hadn't heard that over here. That's really sad. Was that just recently, today, or when was
that?
It
just happened 3 days ago.
3 days ago. Yeah, prayers going out to his family and the city that he worked for and all that. But, we're here to talk about you and everything that you do. Tell everybody a little bit about Winston-Salem State. Where exactly is that for those of us that don't know?
Well, Winston-Salem State is in between Greensboro and you can pretty much say Charlotte. Most people think when they hear Winston-Salem State, they think of Stephen A. Smith because he played basketball at Winston-Salem State University. So they're the Rams. I'm fortunate and blessed enough to be able to be a part of this team. After retiring from Edenton as the police chief, I wanted to work on my second retirement, and Winston-Salem had a position open as a lieutenant. And I said, hey, I'm going to give it 5 more years before I retire again, and came on board, and I left.
All right. And I did say there in the intro that it is one of our HBCUs. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is. Mm-hmm.
All right. What's the student population like over there as far as size?
Now, student population, we have a significant amount of size of students. It's about your medium-sized HBCU. It's not, obviously, we know A&T is in Greensboro, right at the road. A&T is the largest HBCU, but we can hold on. We are sitting in the CIAA, again, our sports is known. Our football team, our basketball team is doing an excellent job this year, and so give shout out to the football coach and the basketball coach for doing their thing.
Yeah, you mentioned Stephen A. Going there, he was part of the basketball team there out here, but also heard that he averaged like 1.1 one point a game there over there at there was a big debate on like how do you average less than 1 point or whatever it was in the amount of games that he played. But yeah, that's all good. He goes back every now and then, right?
No, Stephen A. Smith does a lot for the university, and he's
Yeah,
in
I'm
the Hall
sure.
of Fame. He's in the Hall of Fame on campus, and Dale, Stephen A. Smith to me is one of the gentlemen that don't mind paying it forward and reaching back, and so it's guys like that I hope that our future aspires to be, so our HBCUs can continue to thrive. Because if we leave and we don't pay it forward or don't give back, then where we're going to be in the future.
Yeah, that part right there. So then you mentioned that you had retired from somewhere else before coming to Winston-Salem. Tell everybody a little bit about that.
So prior to coming to Winston-Salem State University, I was appointed police chief in the town of Edenton, which is near Elizabeth City, going back towards Chesapeake, Virginia, and Norfolk. I stayed there at Edenton. I was appointed 2018. Prior to that, I worked at the Rocky Mount Police Department for 18 years. So I started off at the Rocky Mount Police Department, and then I was appointed police chief in 2018. And Edenton is a beautiful place. It's very historic. It has some of the oldest homes that was built in North Carolina, still standing back in the 1700s. And I can tell you that it was a beautiful place, and I enjoyed being a police chief and being welcome. I tell you, Dale, what made me take that job was Edenton had a racial reconciliation group, and they actually met once a month, and they actually worked about issues and talked about things on how law enforcement and the community can come together. And we recognize that, yes, law enforcement was always used back in the days in a negative light, but we talked about how can we take what's going on now to build a relationship and to make it better. So that's one of the main reasons why I took that job, because of the racial reconciliation group that actually was trying to get something done in that community.
Word. Love hearing that. And how did that all work out?
It worked out well. I mean, we had our fair share of violent crime, but the citizens started actually engaging into the see something, say something. A lot of people have this stigma about the no snitch policy, but I can tell you that in the community, the people were fed up, and they was like, you know what, you may call me a snitch, but I'm going to make sure that my community is safe. And if I'm going to make sure that I show up to court, I'm going to make sure that my employer supports me for showing up to court, because we all know that the court system can give you 4 or 5 continuance, and it can be kind of frustrating. So we kind of work together, and that again, that racial reconciliation group allowed us to put together and educate people in our community.
Now, a racial reconciliation group. So you're going back and just saying that there were some issues regarding race back in that community.
Yeah, well, it's so here it is. The demographics of Edenton was about 54% Afro American, and but the issue was that a lot of the if you look at the history of Edenton, a lot of the Afro Americans back in the days owned a lot of property, and for whatever reason, when their children got educated, they didn't tend to come back, so they started losing a lot of property. And some would call it gentrification, but I would pretty much look at it was that sometimes we didn't get educated enough in generational wealth. So it was an opportunity for racial reconciliation group to come in and say, hey, no one is taking their property. We need to sit down and we need to educate these neighborhoods about generational wealth. We need to educate these neighborhoods about simply putting together a will. We had an incident where a gentleman passed away, and his car was involved in an accident. And when we towed his car, he was still living, but when he died at the hospital, that turned into a whole thing of you had to have a will, or someone had to have a not necessarily probate. You had to be the executor of the estate, to get that vehicle out of the towage. And the family really got upset with the police department because we couldn't help them get their car, but we explained to them what they had to do. But so I had a will clinic put on in town. It's just a lot of things that people just didn't get educated on, and sometimes in smaller towns where reconciliation group like that stepped forward and helped out of all races and colors.
Absolutely. And then you also mentioned before, taking that job as chief, you're over at the Rocky Mount Police Department. Where's that?
So Rocky Mount, believe it or not, is the midpoint between Florida and New York on I-95. It sits right in the middle. It has it's in between two counties, Nash and Edgecombe County. So if you are on 64 and you're in Rocky Mount, then you are between Raleigh and Greenville, North Carolina, where ECU is located at.
Okay. All right. Then you were there for quite a while. What
Yes,
made
sir.
you want to get into law enforcement? Had been something that you always wanted to do, or
Yeah,
what?
believe it or not. So it's two jobs that I really wanted to do. It was being a police officer, and but my main job that I wanted to do was to be a college football coach. But the reason why I didn't never pursue that dream, because my father taught me at an early age about having a 401k, and I always saw my football coaches. They always had a job, but they always bounced from HBCU to HBCU, and I was really worried about what would that retirement look like and what my 401k would look like. Like I said, they always stayed employed, but they never stayed in one location for a very long time. So I chose policing.
Nice. And then you went to Rocky Mount. Tell us a little bit about what you did over there.
So when I started my career Rocky Mount, I loved it. I started off just like most police officers, working patrol for many years. Became an SRO, which was I believe when I became an SRO at Edwards Middle School, that was one of the best jobs ever, because you were kind of like the chief, and you pretty much kept the children safe at the. I had a middle school, and those same kids to this day call me, the SRO, and it's ironic. The tennis coach, excuse me, the golf coach here at Winston-Salem State University, when I first saw him, when I was doing my tour of campus, he told everybody, he was like, "Hey, I remember Officer King. He was my SRO," making me feel all old on campus in front of everyone. Mr.
Yeah,
Chaz Penny. But it really showed that the impact that you had in people's lives, and you can do a many of things in law enforcement, but I truly believe as an SRO in a middle school, you're really impacting those men and women's lives at a point to where they really are trying to find their way and what they want to be in life. And I enjoyed that job. And like anyone, I worked narcotics.
yeah.
But the most important job that I've worked in law enforcement was when I was appointed to internal affairs. I was the first Afro-American at the Rocky Mount Police Department to become IA. And I loved that job. I learned a lot, and I really learned about fairness, getting in that office and making sure that everyone received the same discipline, that no one was being treated different. I really enjoyed that, to ensure that fairness was coming across the board.
Absolutely. We hear about all the fairness and transparency and voice and all that with the law enforcement and the community, how we're supposed to engage with the community, but you rarely hear about that on the treating those on the inside, those that you work for and work with that same fairness and voice, and giving them a voice as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I'll tell you, I found some discrepancies when I went inside the Internal Affairs office. I found out that there were things where if patrol did something like back into a car, they got a written reprimand, but the guys in special operations, if they backed into a patrol car, their captain was able to finagle it and get them a corrective counseling. So we had to say, wait a minute, we had to stop doing that, and we had to make sure that everybody was receiving the same discipline across the board.
Yeah. You hear about the Golden Boys, of course. They get special treatment, and sounds like that happens all the way out here in California, all the way over there to the East Coast. So those are things that need to be addressed, and it sounds like you kind of address those over there. What other kind of things that kind of piqued your interest in law enforcement growing up?
So one of my main things is I've always wanted to be a federal agent, but I just never did cross that threshold. So back in 2010, I was sworn in with the Department of Homeland Security, where I was able to work a lot of intellectual property rights crimes, a lot of sexual assault crimes, a lot of child pornography crimes, and I was the longest serving task force officer here in the state of North Carolina, where the first task force officer to have his credentials retired. So I was honored and blessed, but it brought a lot of networking for me here,
Yes.
and a lot of relationships that I have, throughout my whole career, and it was a blessing. And but it
Yeah.
also but it also helped bridge the gap because I'll tell you why, Dale, because when people saw me out here in HSI task force officer, I was able to have a conversation with a lot of immigrants. I wasn't there for deportation. In fact, I educated them about U visas. I couldn't promise them that they would get a citizenship, but I taught them the ways of how to get a U visa and how to start the process to help build that relationship here in the United States. And that in turn allowed them to feel comfortable with calling the police.
Yeah, that's always a thing that we always try to walk the line between law enforcement and helping the federal authorities involving immigration issues, when to help them and when to not, just because a lot of those immigrant communities fear the deportation part of of those things, and they think that we as the police are going to facilitate that, where a lot of times we're not there for that. We're there to make sure that they're safe regardless of their status, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. And then bringing it back to Winston-Salem, talk about the experience there working there for the university.
Well, I can tell you, it's been an honor and a privilege. Working at the university is definitely different, Dale, as relates to law enforcement. You're policing the future. These young men and women, they're college students, and they're going to do what college students do. They're going to have fun. They're going to cut up, but it's a great atmosphere. It kind of reminds me some of the days when I was in school, when I attended North Carolina State University in Durham, North Carolina, in Eagle Pride, of course, and uh, but I tell you what, these students, they go to school dressed up. I remember being in college, I wore a lot of sweatpants, sweatshirts because I played football. But now these kids are going to school in suits. I call it casket ready with bow ties. So it really makes you smile because you see how the college students are really changing. They're really preparing for society out here.
Nice, nice. And then what makes it extra special is that historic Black College and University, HBCU, which Winston-Salem is. Well, talk about that experience.
Oh man, it's just like being at home. We all have strong pride in our HBCUs. Obviously, A&T is not going to brag on Winston. Central's not going to brag on A&T, but we all realize that we're just one HBCU and we're going to look out for one another. I know I may be a graduate of Central, but I bleed red right now, and I'm around pride, and I enjoy being there, and I look forward to helping these young men and women when they graduate. Hopefully, some of them come join the force, become 911 telecommunicators, or we can help them reach their goals of joining the U.S. Marshals or the FBI, whatever their ultimate goal is. We want to help put that best foot forward and use our contacts to help them get a job.
Nice, nice. My daughter's she's a student over at Howard, a junior over there at Howard. So, I know about the HBCU life. I kind of wish, out here in California that we had something like that out here. I think probably the furthest west HBCU would probably be Howard, probably, right? I don't know if there's anything in Texas, right?
No, I don't think that's anything in Texas. I think Louisiana, I believe. And so
Yeah.
It's a southern down there, Louisiana.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah.
Grambling. I know
Yeah,
Grambling. Grambling.
yeah.
Grambling is definitely there. Yeah. I went to Grambling once on a recruiting trip years ago, and let me tell you, that was it right there. I wish I went to school there.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
that was a good time. That was a
Well,
good time.
it's definitely a different experience there at the HBCU. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
That you're going to get. I tell folks that you want. Listen, I was born and raised in Durham, so you had Central and you had Duke. So when we was at school at Central, we hung out at Duke University, so we got a chance to share our different experiences by just going right up the road and hanging out with the Duke students and vice versa. I remember being in school in Grant Hill. Was in school at the same time. I remember going to a basketball party where he was at. He was actually dating at the time Jacob Pigney. So I just remember how we just hung out together and just shared those experiences.
Nice, nice. Yep. And you kind of mentioned that you want to help out with some of those students reaching their goals if they want to pursue a career in law enforcement. What do you think? That career, our career, is like, moving forward? Do you see a lot? I know I hear a lot of times that a lot of agencies are having problems nowadays in recruitment. Where do you see the future in law enforcement?
Well, I see the future in law enforcement if we don't get back on track there. It frightens me a little bit. I'll be honest with you because we have so much negative when incidents happen in one location. We all get the blame for it. We understand how that works, and we're constantly working on relationships. Something happened in California. No offense to LAPD, for example. Something happened in California. We get the blame for it in North Carolina, even though that's
Yep.
thousands of miles away. Y'all did it too. So we're constantly rebuilding. But I really think a lot of the issue is we're not reaching out as we should to recruit young men and women. And when I say recruit, Dale, if you can tell me, because you've been doing this Black and Blue podcast for a long time, and you have interviewed a plethora of people on your podcast, but if you can tell me any department that truly has a police department that represents the community they serve, then let me know, because I want to move there. And what I mean by that is a lot of these communities have different nationalities, but they don't have not one person on their force that speaks Arabic. They don't have one person on their force that speaks Vietnamese or Mandarin Chinese. But yet, all our communities have an influx of these, and they are great business owners sitting right here, but nobody took the time to actually go court them and get them to say, hey, let me hire your sons and daughter. Let me get them into the academy. Let me make that your voice be heard in your community, so that way we can embrace these individuals. And that's not happening. It's just not happening.
Yeah, yep. But we need to, keep moving forward and try to make that happen. With podcasts like this, showing that this is a profession that is a proud profession that you can get into as well. It's not just for one group of people; it's for everybody.
Absolutely. I tell
Yeah,
folks
we
all
all
the
got
time.
skin in this game.
Oh yes, absolutely. I tell folks all the time, Dale, that if I had all to do again, I would. I love law enforcement. This is where a lot of people need to be, and I can tell you, sometimes in a lot of coaches, not just the Afro American coach, but a lot of coaches, grandmother is like E.F. Hutton. What she said goes, and I can tell you
Okay.
that. And I can tell you that if I had listened to my grandmother, who grew up in Laurinburg, Scotland County, North Carolina, who had a different experience with the police, I would have never become the police, but I had a different experience. So thank God I didn't let grandma influence me. Now I love my grandma when she was living. I couldn't do no wrong. I could get away with everything with grandma, but I just had a
Yeah.
different experience. And when she first heard that I was being the police, she kind of looked at me sideways, but she supported me though.
Right. I mean, because there's no way to change it from the outside. We all have to enter this profession so that we can change it from the inside.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
And I could tell you that, when not to get into politics, but back when President Obama first took office, I when I started this job, I could remember, I could almost count on my hands the number of people of color that was police chiefs, and all of a sudden it just like blew up. But now
Mhm.
everybody's retiring, and what worries me is, are we reaching back? Are we preparing these young men and women to replace us? And I just don't know if that's happening or not. I hope it is, but I just don't see the influx of police chiefs across the country. I'm looking at the perf notes every day. I'm looking at who's getting appointed across the country, and I just don't see it the way I saw it here, especially in North Carolina. We had at one point, I don't know if you knew, but we had a lot of major city police chiefs in North Carolina were Afro American. We had Raleigh, Durham, Fayetteville, Charlotte. It was on and on and on. The sheriffs. We had a lot of sheriffs out of 100 counties. We had an influence of Afro American sheriffs, which had never been done before in North Carolina.
And you've seen that kind of taper off.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, I have, and not because of anything or anyone doing. I always tell folks that, we can't get mad when we're not coming to the table. I can tell you that as the president of the North Carolina Police Chiefs Association, um, when the decisions are made, no one's making decisions because someone is being particularly racist. It's just that sometimes if we're not at the table, then we can't give our perspective. And sometimes we challenge each other by saying, "Have you ever thought about this?" And sometimes no one has never thought about that. So if we're not at the table, we can't get mad when decisions are made when we're not there.
Right, right. But I could also see a lot of it, mentoring is, plays a large part in, getting that next seat at the table.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I would really want. Because I can tell you that when I first started policing, I didn't hear about Noble until I was probably about when I made the rank of sergeant, about getting ready to try out for lieutenant. But we have an organization called North State here in North Carolina. And that was the first Afro American organization that I heard about here in North Carolina. But, North State is kind of like dying off a little bit. And, and it makes you wonder sometimes what's really going on. Are our young men and women not taking up the mantle, kind of like the John Lewis? Who's going to be the next John Lewis here in Congress? We have a lot of young men and women that are trying to take John Lewis forward. We need that in law enforcement. Who's going to step up and grab the mantle and take it and run with that torch?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of, John Lewis and all the accomplishments that he made in Congress over the years before his passing, let's talk about some of your accomplishments. I saw there in your resume there that you were instrumental in bringing the bowler wrap to one of your prior agencies. Talk about the bowler wrap and what that is.
So the bowler wrap is a rescue tool, is what we call it. It allows law enforcement to be able to take someone into custody to keep them safe, the officers safe, as well as the community safe. And it's something that we needed a long time ago. I'm not taking anything away from the taser. I'm just looking at an alternative method that does not cause pain compliance, and it does not cause anyone any harm.
So how does it work? What is it?
So it's a Kevlar device about the size of a remote control that deploys out and it wraps around you, and it gives you an opportunity then to move in and take that person into custody. And I really love it. It has the same distance as a taser, about 21 feet, but again, there's no electricity with it, and you can deploy it, and it's more of a rescue tool, and it really helps out on mental patients. And the reason why I brought it to Edenton, North Carolina, is because that is a more of your retirement, a lot of military veterans that suffer from PTSD. And the last thing I wanted any of my officers to do was to tase a 70-year-old man who was going through crisis.
Absolutely. And you found that the bowler wrap is an effective tool, probably in conjunction with the taser, not in lieu of a taser, right?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The taser has its place, but the bowler wrap definitely is one of those things where in my community, I'll tell you a quick story. So when I first discovered the bowler wrap, I reached out to bowler wrap and I had them come to North Carolina Justice Academy, who oversees all our training here in North Carolina. And then I actually asked them to come to Edenton, and I put a demonstration on at the Rotary. Where Dale, a lot of Rotary clubs is where you have all your who's the who and your business owners. And I also had them come to the hospital and do a demonstration with the nurses at the hospital. So I didn't have to sell it to my community; they sold it for me because they saw the need to deal with mental patients leaving the hospital in the community. The loved ones, they wanted their loved ones to be bowler wrap instead of being tased or being sprayed with OC.
Yeah. Okay. I could see that. And it at some point you got to go hands on,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Absolutely.
And that allows for, probably a safer time of doing that, because are they, constrained
Yes, sir.
at that point?
They're constrained, and then you could just go hands on and put the handcuffs on. Yes, sir. Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely. And to give my guys more buy-in, we call it a force avoidance. So at the end of the year, Dale, you familiar when we had to report to council our use of forces? I can say, hey, we had 5 use of forces, but we had 15 force avoidance. So they'll let my council know that, hey, we had an opportunity to use force, but we deployed the bowler wrap, which was the force avoidance, and it didn't count towards the early warning system.
Oh, wow.
But we
Okay.
still documented it like a use of force.
Yes.
But we didn't, treat it like the early warning system.
All right. Yeah. I haven't seen many of those out here on the West Coast yet, so I don't think it's made it to many agencies out here yet. But I would love to get that, in our arsenal before I can at least try it once. I want to try it
LAPD, I know LAPD has it. There's a few. I can get you a couple of agencies out there in California that has them, because actually where I learned it from first, from the West Coast.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen YouTubes and stuff about it. never seen it in practice yet.
Yes,
But
sir.
yeah, it sounds like a great tool, like a great tool right there. So what's next for you at the next 5 years, Lieutenant?
So so here in North Carolina, we're very unique. So once you complete your 30 years on the local government side, where I was as a police chief and a police officer, you have an opportunity to work on the state level. And if you're once you turn 50 or 51, you can work 5 years. You have to be 55, but you have to work 5 years, and then you can retire again. So for me, Dale, I'm 51. I'm gonna work at the university until I'm 56. I'm going to retire August 5th, 2029. I already got my date set. And then
Already got the date.
that's right. But I'm going to continue. It's one thing I do that I love doing. It helps me out with community policing. Um, I referee high school football and basketball. So when I retire at the age 56, I'm just going to go off and I'm just going to do AAU high school football and basketball because I enjoy, seeing the kids and, kind of rough with the parents. Everybody, those moms and dads can be kind of tough at AAU.
Oh yeah.
But we're teaching our kids in the future. And I love seeing that and just giving some words of wisdom and kindness while I'm out there on the basketball court, blowing the whistle, and calling those fouls or those travels.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you played. What position did you play earlier?
So I played football. I played tight end.
Right.
I actually, believe it or not, I was the strongest football player in NCCU back when I was there. My record still holds. And if you ever YouTube Where Are They Now, you will see the interview I did at NCCU.
Okay. You record for what, yards or
No,
receptions or what?
no, not reception, just in weightlifting. I was able to.
Ooh.
Yeah, I squat 600 pounds, bench press 415, and power clean 315.
Wow.
And bench press 225 36 times.
Wow. What's your fitness like today?
Well, as I got a little older, I still PT. I mean, I still run, but I ain't lifting. I ain't lifting no weights like that though.
No, none of us are. But we gotta stay fit. Keep our bodies, and our minds fit.
Well, one thing I vowed, Dale, is that here in North Carolina, once you retire, you get what you call a law enforcement supplement until you turn 62. I worked in 30 years, and God willing, I'm gonna collect that money every day till I turn 62.
There you go. For real.
Because sometimes law enforcement we tend to sometimes not live a long time past our retirement. So
yeah, and there's a number of factors in that, and one of them being, the wellness component of 30 years of stress and not dealing with that throughout our career, and then when it's time to call it, our hearts call it as well. So
absolutely. Now I can tell you that right now the students are out of school. They don't return to January 6th. And Dale, I can tell you it was very unique to go to work yesterday and the day before yesterday and work 12 hours and no calls come out. I wasn't used to that. The radio, a couple of times I had to check the radio to make sure I still had it on the right channel.
Yeah.
But that's a blessing, and that's what we want from a university.
Right. What's the relationship between the university police and the city or the county police over there?
It's good because the police chiefs here in North Carolina, we have the North Carolina Police Chiefs Associations. So a lot of the police chiefs, campus police chiefs, they're all a part of the organization. So we meet monthly, the sheriff's office, the police department, and we collaborate on a lot of things. So the relationship is really good. And a lot of the students that don't come and be employed with us wind up going to the sheriff's office or the police department. So we have a lot of alumni that's working there as well too. And believe it or not, the sheriff actually has one of his sons that play football on the football team. So, the sheriff's at every football game.
Okay, all right, vested interest right there.
Absolutely,
100.
And he also teaches on campus as well too.
Okay. You ever had any aspirations of doing any education yourself?
No, I can tell you there that one thing that I can tell you about the UNC school system here in North Carolina. I don't know what it's like in California, but if you become a police officer at any UNC school system here in North Carolina, then you have an opportunity to get your bachelor's, master's, and PhD paid for while you at work and while you employed there. So, I do have an opportunity if I wanted to go back and get my PhD. I'm not going back to school, but if I did want to go back to school, I could do it and actually go to any UNC school system or get it at Winston-Salem, while I'm at work. So that's a blessing in itself, So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of our recruiting tools. Say, come work for
Oh
us,
yeah.
and you can save you some money and get your education, and
That's what's
you'll be
up.
allowed to go to class while you at work.
Sure. Love that. Love that. And one big thing that plagues the nation is active shooters. We had one not too long ago that made the news over in Madison at a school there, and it's always something we have to worry about with our schools and our universities. Talk about the training and the preparation over there at Winston-Salem.
Well, absolutely. So the training we have, we're equipped with all of the ride gear, all of the table talks, working closely with our emergency management. I can tell you that we can never stop training enough. Our partners at UNC Chapel Hill, NC State, we get together and obviously cross train. They, I'm sure you probably saw a lot of the protests that may have went on at UNC Chapel Hill and other schools that was involved in Ukraine and so on and so on. So we have an opportunity to train and prepare for a lot throughout the whole year. It's taxing, but it's well worth it, and I enjoy some of the training that our chief sent us to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always something we got to stay vigilant for because it's not a question of how, but a question of when. Because all of us are it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time.
But speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up. One thing I would like for you to discuss maybe in the future with someone is we got to have that serious conversation on how we can fix the violence that as relates to HBCU homecomings. We got to look at what can we do to kind of
Okay.
help curb that stigma. Because I'm sure you probably saw there was a significant amount of different shootings that occurred. We didn't have anything, thank God. I think we were real prepared, but we had a lot of incidents go on during different homecomings, and one being in Tuskegee, where they had a lot of shooting, people get shot down there. But it's always seemed like a lot of negative stigma around HBCU homecomings, and I would like to see that kind of cleared up in the future.
Absolutely. And like I told you, my daughter goes to Howard. I don't think they had any incidents, but yeah, like you said, over there at Tuskegee, there's always been some sort of stigma that behind HBCUs and homecoming and the violence, but it doesn't happen all the time and doesn't happen at each campus. So we just gotta kind of weed out those problem children.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird because they are supposed to be there for higher learning.
Well, sometimes I think that we're all about making sure that people have fun and alumni come back. But I think sometimes it's almost like do you shut down the campus and only make it for students only because it was you hate to say it, but a lot of the negativity that comes with it are individuals that never attended any of the HBCUs
From the
and they
outside.
just
Yep.
outside bringing that trouble in.
Yeah, I agree. All right, LT. Hey, I appreciate the talk with you and all that. And how about some words of wisdom for our listeners and our viewers before we get you out of here?
Well, my words of wisdom for the men and women that are in this profession and who also want to come join this profession is take your time, learn, be humble, and listen to your leadership. Never stop asking for training. Train as much as you can, learn as much as you can, and make contacts. One thing I pride myself on, Dale, is that I can talk to a stranger. I can walk up to see anyone. When I went to training, I tried to make sure that I met everyone that was in my class, whether they looked like me, didn't look like me, whether they agreed with me or didn't agree with me, because I always believe that you can learn something from everyone, regardless of what they may think or you may think about them. There's always when everybody says I'm going right, I'm that guy to say, okay, I'm not saying I'm not going right, but tell me why we're not going left. So, don't be afraid to challenge status quo, ask questions, but remain humble and listen.
Good words to live by right there. Sure, for sure. All right, LT. Hey, I appreciated you. And hey, be safe out there in Winston-Salem, and give Stephen A a big what up from the Black Blue Podcast. And yeah, I appreciate you.
I will. I will. I tell my frat brother you said hello.
Absolutely. You take care, sir.
All right. Okay, Dale.
Right.
Bye-bye.
All right, now another amazing interview with another amazing guest right here on the Black and Blue Podcast. I want to thank Winston-Salem State University Police Lieutenant Henry King for pulling up and dropping some knowledge on us here today. I appreciate you, sir, and wish you continued success out there in North Carolina. If you guys out there appreciated my conversation with Lieutenant King too, go ahead and let me know by leaving a comment in the section down there below. I'll be back in a couple weeks with another great interview just like this one, but till then, y'all know the phrase, stay black in blue. I'll holler at you. Peace.
This has been a Maitre D Entertainment presentation.